Well, good morning from Glencoe in the Scottish Highlands. Karl here from Glencoe Photography, and what I've done today is I've moved up to the top end of the glen here and I've parked at a place called Honeypot, which is the start of the Devil's Staircase, which is part of the West Island Way. And the reason I've come here is quite often I hear people go, yeah, I've been to Glencoe, I drove through it on the way to Skye or sort of Inverness or something like that. And that's if you've not got much time. There's a little location there which will maximise the spots for your photos, and that place is called Lagangarbh Cottage. And the reason being is there's about at least 7 or 8 really world-class compositions here. So I'm going to show you in this little video all 7 world-class compositions of Lagangarbh Cottage. Okay, so Lagangarbh Cottage and this Honeypot area is a fantastic location for sunrise. So this is a really morning sort of spot, because what happens is the sun goes behind the buckle here, this buccleated moor here, and it goes behind and then puts everything in shade. So you kind of want to keep this as a morning one. Or if you're at a very specific time of the year, wintry time, then what happens is then sunset goes down this little U-shaped valley here called the Lagangarbh, and you get a wonderful sunset, and I'll show you some images from that. So really you want to kind of base yourself here in the mornings just to get the best of the light before it goes or hides. In the summer obviously it goes too high and then it's just, you're right in the shot there. So that's the plan. So what you got to do, park at Honeypot. Now the parking here is a bit dicey. There's a few little spots. If you come down to the cottage road, be very careful of losing your front bumper. There's one up there already. So if you can try and park there is talk about they're going to tarmac this eventually, hopefully, and make a decent car park out of it. So get yourself on the road. Now watch this road again. I always say it, but this is the main road to sort of on the west coast. So just watch this road. And then the first thing you want to do, so you're kind of doing sunrise. You're really in the morning. So you want to come on down here and then just walk into the main car park here and then cross over and stay the left-hand side of the barrier, and that gets you all the way around. And what you're looking for is a little tree. So we're going to head up to there and I'm going to show you where that location is first off. Yeah, so you kind of walk on the left-hand side of the barrier, and then what you do is you'll see a tree in the distance there. Just before the tree, just keep your eye on the cottage, because what the cottage has got is to the left-hand side, there's a little wooded area just to protect it from the wind. And what you don't want is that wooded area overlapping the cottage itself in the photo. So you've kind of got to come over a little bit, but not too far. So if you got to the tree, you've gone too far. So you'll see kind of a little ridge of turf and heather here with a few little mossy boulders on it. And that's the perfect spot. And the good thing is with this location is we've got this big, massive, heading up to Rannoch Moor here. Any time of the year, really, you're going to get, if there's going to be a good sunrise, it don't matter where you stand here, you're going to get a decent sunrise. Because Rannoch Moor is so wide and vast, it doesn't matter which time of year you're at, the sun is always going to be here, if you're lucky enough. So I would always advise coming here first for a good sunrise, because you get that beautiful light and that big massive vista, which is what you're looking for. And the cottage then gives you some perspective and scale. Okay, so now it's a game of finding some foreground interest. I might have a go with the long lens here, but there's a few little boulders here as well. So I think we're going to have a look if some of those work. Yeah, okay, I think I found this composition. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I was here just actually the far end of autumn last year, and I was in exactly the same position with the client, and we managed to get a couple of shots off. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the shot from them, because the light was much better. The light's a little bit dodgy here at the minute, and the vegetation's a bit sort of grey and flat at the moment. So I think what I'm going to do, but I kind of want to talk you through the composition. This is pretty much the composition I had then. So what I do is I found these boulders here, so I'll show you around. So you've got these boulders here, and they're lovely because they've got all this moss over them and that lovely grass as well, and then there's lots of heather and all that around it as well. So there's quite a big variety of vegetation on these things. Look at this one here, it's completely covered in this kind of moss. There's a little boulder in there, so they're quite good for foreground interest. So what I did is I used that as foreground interest, and then that guides the eye up to the cottage itself, which is there, and then you've got the buckle there as well. So I think that's a really nice shot, and when I looked at the image, the light was just fantastic and the colours were amazing. It was just kind of mid-autumn there, and the colours just sort of popped and made it come alive. So I really like this image from this location. So let me show you the image number 1 from this location. Okay, so my next spot is you kind of walk back to the sort of main car park, come down a little bit, and then if you look over to your right hand side, there is a little bit of a track, but what that does is it follows off towards this little beautiful old bridge, which is like nice and wooden old bridge standing there. So that's your next location, and obviously you can get that pretty quick. It's only took me a few seconds to get from the first spot. So kind of if you're getting some beautiful light, run under here, peg it down here and come to this next location, which is nearby you. So we're going to go across the bridge. It's a bit dicey, it's quite an old bridge, so the wood is definitely on its way out. So if you're going across it, luckily there's some metal sort of girders, so you can kind of walk along the girders, but don't just cross the bridge on the wood out you're going to be through. So this Alton Le Fay area at the top end of the glen with Lagangarbh Cottage is a wonderful location. But this spot itself, it's easy to get sort of sucked into the cottage and head on down this way, and you kind of miss this little bridge. But it works really well, and the reason being is these sleepers are so old that they've been bleached by the sun, so they're very white in contrast with the dark sort of grasses and heathers around it, so you get this really lovely contrast. And then because the orientation of them leads your eye to the cottage itself, and then you've got this big buckle behind me, this big mountain, so you get some real depth to this shot, some real perspective as well. Cool, I'm going to set up a composition here. I might take one here, but remember I've still got that other shot that I took in autumn when I was with that client, so I've got that one to show you as well. So if this shot works, here's the image. Okay, so my next spot is you've got to walk down the track, get back on the track again, walk down, and you're about probably a quarter of the way down. There's a bit of a mound that kind of sticks up. You'll see a little track that gets you there, and you can actually stand on that mound, and what that does is it gives you a little bit of elevation, lifts you up a little bit, and then that gets you a nice little shot of the cottage. There's not much in the foreground here, so you're kind of just using the cottage, but then that gives a nice perspective with that big buckle, the big mountain behind. Cool, let's get a composition then. Okay, I think I've got a nice composition here. I've got the cottage right in the middle there, and it's probably going to be kind of a panoramic. Now, there's one thing I should say about Lagangarbh Cottage is the cottage itself does have a little bunkhouse on its own on the left-hand side behind it. And the story with this shot is about isolation. So I find that little bunkhouse kind of loses a little bit with the story because it's another building next to it. So what I tend to do is I'll either get in a position where I can't quite see the bunkhouse, or I'm quite happy to clone that out and let the AI just remove it quite easily. And the reason being is it just doesn't tell the story of isolation when you've got that little building behind it. And this is a good example of that because I can see it right in the shot itself. So I will remove it, and then that gives you this idea of this single building just on its own with this big massive mountain behind it. And that's what the story is I'm trying to achieve with this image. And the light's okay, it's kind of coming in and out. It's a little bit in my face now, so it's a bit harsh. So what I'm having to do is bracket this. I've bracketed 3 images, and I'm going to do 2 stops apart just to get that massive dynamic range which I've got now, because I'm really shooting quite in the sun here. Cool, okay. I think this composition works really well. So if the image works, here's the next photo. Yeah, so that's not a bad little shot, and actually it's very similar to the next location. We're going to get that big vista of the big mountain behind and then just a little totty cottage, and giving that perspective and height to the mountain. So this next location also follows that kind of theme. So we're going to head on down towards the gravelly area just before the bridge, and then we're going to turn right and head towards the burn. Yeah, so what you got to do, come across the gravel just before the bridge, turn right, come across the gravel and walk all the way up to the burn. There's a little bit of a campfire that's been there for a few years. A bit of rubbish on it today, I'm not going into that. And then you get into sort of the bend of the river. So this is the River Couple, and it comes on round and kind of bends a bit and spreads out a little bit, and then goes into some more high energy cascades on the way down. So what you want to do is to kind of get into this area here, and actually you can see in the video camera there, if you look at it, what I'm looking for is kind of a reflection. So you can almost see the buckle reflected in the water. Now there's a bit of a wind up today, which is not ideal, so I'm going to super slow it down a little bit. But that kind of gives you that kind of lensoid, kind of an hourglass effect, which looks really nice with the cottage in the middle. And again, where I am here, the cottage does have the bunkhouse just poking out on the left-hand side. In fact, it's even worse because it's kind of overlapped, so it looks even worse. You're not quite sure what this thing is. So I would strongly advise you to remove that from the shot if you can, because it is very sort of obtrusive in the image. So I'm going to try and get a nice composition here. Now, we've not had much rain at all, honestly. The last probably even a month, we've not had significant rainfall, which is unusual for this time of year. And so the rivers are really quite low. We had a bit yesterday, so this has topped it up a little bit for me, but I could do with it a little bit higher. And what you do get a bit further down is some little boulders in the river, so you can use those as foreground interest, but I'm not going to do that today because I kind of want that kind of more minimalist sort of look about this shot. So about here somewhere is going to work quite well for me, so let me go and find a good composition. Okay, so what I want to do is, because there's this bit of a breeze, I'm kind of losing the reflection a little bit. I wish the wind had stopped just for a few seconds so I could get it. So what I'm going to do is a couple of things with filters here. You don't want to really put a polarizer on because we're trying to get a reflection shot. So I don't actually want to start looking through into the water because I'm going to lose a bit of the reflection. So I'm actually going to not put a CPL on, but but I am going to come on with quite a big filter here. And what I've done is I've also had to go into the wide angle lens, so I'm at about, what's that, 22mm, so just a bit wider. The 24 to 70 is just a little bit too tight, so having that 2mm extra has just helped me a little bit. So I've gone on with a wide angle lens, and I'm going to pop on this 6-stop filter just to slow everything down, maybe get a bit of sort of texture in the sky, but also trying to get this reflection back because of this little breeze. Yeah, okay, so this is a nice easy location. Pop on down the track just before the bridge, and if you look out on the right hand side, you get this absolutely spectacular vista of Lagangarbh Cottage, the Larry Garden and the Wee Buckle as well. Now the composition's really good here, and I would say this is the best location in the Glen where the composition just works. It kind of fits all the guides and works really well. So I always quite often bring my clients here when we're teaching them about composition and how things work and connect in the landscape. So it's a really good location for that. Now what I was talking about is this is one of the spots where sunset works quite nice, because you get the sun setting down the Larry Garden here, and it sort of sets down and gives you those beautiful colours. So even though this general area is really a morning location, this is the one couple of spots here where you can get a lovely sunset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a composition first, and I'll show you a nice sort of composition, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a nice sunset shot that I got a few years ago. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through the composition of this one. So obviously my camera is here. So what I've got is I've got this leading line of the River Coupal coming up here. Now normally what I tend to do is I'll polarise this just to see through into the water, because there's some beautiful textures in the boulders here. But actually today I'm quite liking the fact that it's very shiny, because I'm getting the reflection of that sun which is just up there, look. So I'm getting that sort of really nice contrast of the bright water with the darker sort of heather up here and the gravel here. So it kind of works really well. Now the shot itself is it just works. It's one of these locations that just work. So you've got this left to right guide leading the eye through, leading line going through the river. You can actually pop the cottage on the rule of thirds, or the guide of thirds as I like to call it. Not a big fan of the guide of thirds, but it kind of works here. So that's pretty good there, and then it sort of guides your eye off to the Wee Buckle and the Larry Garden here. So it's really such a nice shot, and the composition works really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show this shot first. What I've done is I've put on a 6 stopper again, so I've slowed it right down just to give me some character in the sky. And then what I'm going to do then is I'm going to show you the shot of the sunset from exactly the same position. Just a word of warning is when you're getting leading lines like this river here, you kind of want a bit of elevation, so being a bit higher up here works really well. I've seen a few folks even today just going really quite low onto the river, and then you lose that lead a little bit, so just that little bit of elevation works really well. So this is quite a nice interesting shot, and if this image works, here's the photos. Right, okay, so all I've done is I've just moved around the corner from that last spot, and this is my penultimate location here. So I've gone under the bridge, and it's a really nice spot because you get the leading line and all that stuff again. It's a very similar shot, but because you're a bit lower down, you kind of hide the bunkhouse behind it, so you don't have to clone the bunkhouse out. Anyway, it's a really nice image here. I'm going to take it, slow it down again, and I'm not going to put that polarizer on again just because I'm liking that contrast and that really bright white water. Cool. Well, if this shot works, here's this image. Yeah, that was great, weren't it? It's a lovely little composition, that one is. Cool, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head up back towards the van, but for my last spot, I'm going to kind of follow this burn on as I come up from the bridge, and I'll just follow it all the way up. It's a bit boggy, and I get to a nice little bend in the rock. Now, we've not got much water here, so I don't think it's going to be a particularly spectacular shot today, but I do have an image that I took a few months ago, which I'm going to show you instead. But I'll go and show you the composition and where the location is. Yeah, so what I've done is I've wandered up the burn a little bit. It's a bit boggy, but you get here eventually. What you do is you see some trees just before the A82 comes back onto the road. So just before the last tree, really, you come on down and there's a little kink in the burn itself. And that allows you to use the river as a bit of a leading line that leads the eye to the cottage behind me here. So this shot itself, I'm not going to take a photo here because it's just gravel and it's going to look rubbish, but actually I'm going to show you an image when there was a bit more water in it. And what I did with this image, I've used it in one of my fine art videos. I did a video a few months ago, and this is a really nice image because I really slowed it down so it was like a 2 or 3 minute shot, and I got that beautiful wind coming towards me and blowing the sky, and then the clouds were coming over my head, and it gave that beautiful kind of halo effect, like a crown over the buckle, with a little cottage in the background there just to give some perspective. So it's a really nice image. It's one of my favourite ones, and I've converted it into black and white because it just kind of worked that way. So this is my final location, and if this image works, here's the photo. Yes, it's a really fabulous location, Lagangarbh Cottages. So if you're popping through Glencoe, it's worth a stop, and you'll get quite a handful of really world-class compositions. Cool, well I hope you like the images, I hope you like what I did there. As always, if you can give me a thumbs up, it really helps. Send me some comments, I'll try and reply to if I can. And if you really like the content, click on that subscribe button and you click on the bell icon and you'll get a notification every time I post. It's been a pleasure to have you on board this morning. It's really great to see you and I always appreciate you watching. So thanks so much and we'll see you in the next video. Cool, let me find go in this. What's that mean? Waffle.